A 7¼ inch gauge Sweet William steam locomotive, part 62, drilling the saddle tank pilot mounting holes, making the support bars for the cab, followed by removing it for shot blasting. It's been a while since I worked on this locomotive. The work started to become quite difficult, and other jobs that had been in long before this arrived still weren't finished, and I had to take some time out to get on with those. Mainly though, I just stagnated slightly on this job, but now I'm back on track. With this large engine on the corner of the bench, I kept banging my head. I fitted some temporary protection to reduce the pain. Getting the saddle tank on and off the locomotive without damaging the paintwork is quite difficult, and here I'm doing just that. Removing the saddle tank very carefully. Oh, and by the way, it's quite heavy too. I think it's worth it. This saddle tank looks so much better than the hideous square tanks that were originally fitted to this engine. The saddle tank is now on the bench and I'm taking some measurements. The marks that you can see were made using my deep hole felt tip pen marker whilst the tank was in position on the mounting brackets. The marks on each side of the tank are more or less in the same position. When I measure from the rear of the tank underneath to the top of this round mark that I've emphasised with a line is 12 inches, and on the other side it's about the same. There are slight differences though, but that's down to a few factors. The mounting bracket is not 100% accurate, and neither is the tank. And the blocks I put inside the tank are also not exactly in the same place at each side. That is unimportant. I don't want to use any impact on this tank, so I'm not using a centre punch. Instead, I'm starting off the holes using a centre drill. Unfortunately, shortly after this clip, the battery went flat on the DeWalt. I need to recharge it if I can find the charger. Over now to my Boxford lathe, and after using a centre drill on this piece of brass, I'm drilling a hole in it 1/8 of an inch in diameter. What I'm making is a crude drill depth limiter that I will fit over the 8th drill that I'm going to use to pilot the holes. I parted off the first piece of brass too short, so I parted off another piece, then put them together on the twist drill. I'm doing this because I do not want the holes that are going to be threaded to go all the way through the blocks and into the tank. Anticipating a forthcoming painting job, at this stage I cleaned off all of the felt tip pen marks. Finally, I found my DeWalt charger and put the battery in place on it. I've never really trusted this charger. When I charge a battery on it, it does get quite warm, so I only charge when I'm in the workshop. I take the battery off when I'm not, because I think that burning down my workshop at this stage would be counterproductive. Back on the workshop are the parts that I'm going to use to make a cab support, because the footplate is quite weak where it supports the cab. I'm going to cut a piece of steel that is 3/4 of an inch wide by 1/4 of an inch thick to make the cab supports for the sides. As you can clearly see, I'm using my old metal cutting bandsaw for this. To avoid any viewer confusion, I will explain why the parts are like this. The two in the foreground are the left and right mountings for underneath the cab, and they fit here like this. I put the first one on the left hand side in position, then I use my deep hole marker to transfer the mounting hole positions to the new piece of steel. Luckily, the positions were exactly the same on both sides, which made drilling the holes a bit easier because I drilled them both together with the pieces of steel side by side clamped together in my old cross vise on the drilling machine. I'm drilling the holes 3/16 of an inch to start with. This is clearance size for 2BA, but I think to allow for paint and error I will drill them slightly bigger than this. I was quite pleased when I put the first piece of metal in position that it perfectly matched the holes in the pieces of angle that are attached to the cab sides. This was also the case with the one at the other side. The fits are a bit too good though. 3/16 for a 2BA bolt is quite a tight clearance size, and for that reason I re-drilled all of the holes 1 imperial size bigger. These are going to be tightly sandwiched between the bracket on the cab and the footplate, so really I suppose I could drill them 1/4 of an inch in diameter, but I don't want to do that. Here I'm using a larger twist drill to deburr all of the holes at each side. I'd better explain about the front bit. The crosspiece that says front right on it, and it's upside down, goes all the way across from left to right in front of the cab. But unfortunately the reach rod from the reversing lever fouled the part when it was in position. That's why it's shorter. The small piece of metal that says front left on it goes at the other side of the reach rod. I'm about to do a job that I really do not like doing. I'm removing the cab from the engine without scratching any of the paint on the boiler. This is heavy and difficult to control when moving it, and I'm leaning back to counterbalance the weight. The last thing I want to do with this is lift it at arm's length, because I don't want to pull my back out. No damage to the paint once again, so far so good. I need to straighten out some parts of this cab where I had to remove a couple of pieces of angle because it just wouldn't fit in place. And an ideal tool for this job is a large Barco spanner. It's not important if it marks the paint, because the entire cab is going to be powder coated, in gloss black, not green. The cab is now looking a lot better. Here I'm removing the 6 2BA nuts and bolts from each side which support the saddle tank. These will be fitted permanently in place once the cab has been painted. That's one side done, the bolts are removed. Now over to the other side to repeat the process. You will notice that above where I'm removing the nuts and bolts are the original 3 holes that were the mountings for the original tank at this side. In this clip the cab is on the workbench upside down. Here it is on the floor, and as you can see, the 3 holes at each side are going to be visible when the main tank is in position. I will probably plug these original holes with some more 2BA bolts. I think they should look okay. That is it for this episode. Today I have to go to West Yorkshire and pick up another lathe that I've bought. It's a small one for my second workshop. More about that very shortly in a future video. That's it for now. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.